ladies and gentlemen, back on the Rich Eisen Show because we can't quit him, Tom Pelissero, back here in hour number 3, our final hour here in London. Good to see you, Tom. How are you, sir?
Hey, Tommy P.
Good to see you, Rich, and the boys over in the studio there. I am curious, does Longman know that Brockman raided his closet? Is he on board with this?
Now he does. Now he does. Yeah,
somewhere he's tuning in and saying, I stole that jacket from Liberace. How dare you wear it, you filthy American?
That's what he's probably saying. Right now, his phone lines are burning up at whatever, serious issue he's covering, saying what the heck's going on. All right, so Tom, what is the, what is the backlash from, if you will, or is everybody else talking about the Flacco acquisition by Cincinnati in the same way that Mike Tomlin was from the podium, league-wide? Tom, is that the reaction you're getting league-wide?
We talked about it a lot on this show on Wednesday, setting up this game, because I don't ever remember a head coach in my time, 20-plus years covering the league, coming out and directly calling out a GM over something that did not directly involve him. And it sounds like that was a very honest moment from Mike Tomlin, who, on some level was proven correct when Joe Flacco went out last night and looked like Joe Flacco we haven't seen in a decade. This was Super Bowl run, 2012 type Joe Flacco, absolutely throwing darts all over the field, targeting Jamar Chase like 57 times, and finding ways to move a football on a Bengals team that was in a spot where, listen, if they lose that game last night, it's 5 straight losses. They're 2-5. They're buried in the division, and we're spending time on this show today saying, all right, when are they going to trade Trey Hendrickson or anybody else that might be available on the roster? Instead, he goes out and performs at a very high level that certainly, I got a few calls and texts and people asking about what the reaction's going to be in Cleveland. I think that there are founded reasons why Andrew Berry decided to make that trade. It's a guy who, listen, they wanted to see the rookie quarterbacks. Once they benched Joe Flacco sooner than they had planned to bench Joe Flacco, it was obvious that he was not going back in the lineup. And if at some point Dylan Gabriel they'd seen enough of him, they were going to go to Shedeur Sanders next. So you offload close to $2 million in salary. You upgrade from a 6th to a 5th round pick next year at a time that you are gathering all kinds of ammunition to go up to get the quarterback that potentially you might want in round 1. Though at the current rate, the Browns are in a position where they might not need to trade up. They might have that number 1 pick or top 5 pick that they need to go and get a QB. The optics of it are certainly not friendly in this case, especially because Mike Tomlin drew as much attention to it. The fact that there were full screen graphics on the Prime Video broadcast as Al Michaels was doing a dramatic reading of the Tomlin quote about Andrew Berry last night. And now you got a 1-5 Dolphins team coming in and taking on the 1-5 Browns, who have not been home for a while. They're going to be in some type of a thunderstorm, it sounds like, on Sunday morning. And it definitely adds a little bit of extra edge around what has, by all appearances, appeared to be a rebuilding project in Cleveland, one that now includes the quarterback who was their week 1 starter, going and winning games and maybe keeping a Bengals team afloat within the division.
So let's talk injuries, Tom. Terry McLaurin's out, huh? And if you look at it, this is this 4th straight missed game. I guess they missed the opportunity to throw him on IR. Why is this lingering? How serious is this for him?
It's a quad, a hip flexor. It's something in that area that can cause complications along the way. Terry McLaurin practiced on Wednesday, granted on a limited basis, but they really believed, and I said this on Game Day Kickoff on Sunday, they thought there's an opportunity here. And from my understanding, Terry McLaurin thought he had an opportunity to play in a really big game on Sunday against the Cowboys, but he clearly did not feel right in practice on Wednesday. That's why they ended up holding him out, or he held himself out of practice on Thursday, now officially ruled out for this game. There's not been, to my understanding, any type of a setback. It's more a matter of him trying to get comfortable on the field. He's not there yet, and so the Commanders now are once again in this position like they have been for a month. It might be the most acute that it has been. Noah Brown just went on injured reserve after he had sat how many games, 3 or 4, before they put him down for another 4 games. And Deebo Samuel, dealing with that heel injury, He has not done a whole heck of a lot. He told reporters today, we'll see if he's able to go. It sounds like there's real concern about Debo potentially not being on the field either. If he's not able to go, then, again, in a really big game against Dallas, you might be down your top three wide receivers, which is, as good as Jaden Daniels is, that creates quite the tall task.
Okay, and the 49ers injury scenarios that are playing out right now for that Sunday night game against Atlanta. Kittle's back. We're going to see him. Is he starting on Sunday night?
That is what it sounds like, is that Kittle, it sounds like he maybe had a chance to come back last week, but much like CeeDee Lamb with the Cowboys, it's, do you want to come back and be on a snap count, or do you want to get completely healthy and be full go? It sounds like Kittle is going to be closer to the latter, and is going to be playing a lot for the 49ers on Sunday. In terms of their quarterback situation, it seems like this is probably going to be another week of Mac Jones. Kyle Shanahan said that, Mac's been less limited than Brock Purdy through the course of this week. Obviously, Mac won his first three starts. They had a tough game last week, weren't able to pull it off, but Mac's played good football. He's dealing with a knee. He's dealing with an oblique. He's wearing the knee brace and all that stuff. But with Brock Purdy, remember, last time he missed 2 games, came back and immediately aggravated the toe. Now he's missed 2 games. Maybe giving him a little bit more of a breather is going to make sense for the long haul here. It's not a quarterback controversy. Brock Purdy will be the starter when he's healthy, but the fact that Mac Jones has played well has certainly bought them a little bit more time to be cautious about it this time around, to make sure, okay, let's not run the risk of another setback that takes Brock Purdy out another 2, 3, 4 weeks. Let's make sure he's 100% himself before he's back on the field.
And what about Jauan Jennings? He was mentioning how banged up he is, and I don't know how. There seems to be some smoke in that situation right there.
Well, remember, Jauan Jennings, he was going through a situation, and there was, his agent put out something saying he's requested a trade. Then the 49ers said that didn't happen. They ended up giving him like a small uptick in incentives, but it was all a product of the deal that he signed last year and signed away another season of his career. It's been pretty apparent that he's not been happy with the contract situation, just with the general state of things. And now the 49ers have proceeded. Again, they're well within their rights to enforce the contract that he was on. They gave him a little something to get him into camp. But now, Jauan Jennings is on the injury report with like 3 different things. He said last week he's got, I think, a low ankle sprain and a mid ankle sprain or a high ankle sprain. He's got 5 fractured ribs. He's dealing with a lot. Remember Ricky Pearsall, who every time Ricky Pearsall gets banged up, it seems like it takes him a little bit longer than they're initially anticipating. He still hasn't practiced since he injured the knee a couple of weeks ago. Of course, Brandon Ayuk, it's getting closer, but he's still probably a month or so away, from having a chance to get back onto the field. There's just so many moving parts with this 49ers team. And though, yeah, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, one of the other guys who's been filling in, he popped up on the injury report and didn't practice yesterday. That's a lot for them to overcome. Kyle Shanahan's as good at scheming people open as anybody, but it helps when your good players are available. Jennings has been a limited participant. It seems like he's going to try to go, but he's probably going to be listed as questionable again, and they'll see exactly how he's feeling by Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Some quick hitters here. CeeDee Lamb's coming back, correct?
CeeDee's back. I said that last Sunday. It sounded like it was 50-50. They just had to see how he looked once he got onto the field. He's looked great by all accounts since he got back on the practice field this week. So seems like no restrictions for CeeDee. This will be the first glimpse we've gotten of the CeeDee-George Pickens combo since Pickens really broke out, Rich, and kind of became the focal point of the offense. I'll be interested to see just how Brian Schottenheimer and that crew kind of keep all the mouths fed here coming back. But it's a great problem to have, especially because the defense has not played well. Now Trayvon Diggs is out for the game because he apparently suffered a concussion at home in some type of an accident on Thursday. One more challenge. I don't know how great, honestly, of a scheme fit Trayvon Diggs is. He hasn't seemed like he's been running the same way that he was before his injury situation. So I won't say addition by subtraction, but certainly might be an opportunity for them to get a look at some other players in that position, and they hope try to get things back on track defensively this week.
The Chargers, Joe Alt got back in some form of a practice. Khalil Mack, I got to tell you, man, when I saw his injury in week 2, I would not have thought it was humanly possible to have a practice window opened up prior to week 7. I mean, that is unbelievable. Quentin Johnston appears to be on the mend. Like, what can you tell me about the Chargers' health?
Quentin Johnston got back to full participation yesterday, so no guarantees. They got to see how his body responds, but that's usually a sign that a guy's trending toward playing this week. As far as Joe Alt, I mean, that was another one that looked bad. It's a high ankle sprain. It happened in week 4, so we're not even 3 weeks out from the injury. Now, I don't know if you saw the photos of Joe Alt, but it looks like he's wearing like 1980s moon boots on one of his feet. I mean, that thing had a couple of whole rolls of tape on it yesterday. But, Justin Herbert taped up his high ankle sprain a couple of times last season and rolled out there looking much the same. We'll see. Usually when a guy doesn't practice on Wednesday and he's been out a while, that's a sign he's not going to be able to go on Sunday. But the fact that Joe Alt's out there, whether he plays this week or not, great sign that he's trending back in the right direction. And then you're right. I mean, the Khalil Mack injury looked bad when it happened, but the word that next day was, he dodged a bullet in the bigger picture here. So they're optimistic that he could be out there as soon as this week. It's just a matter of, whether or not they want him to go out there, kind of ease back in terms of the snap count, or give him another week. But for a Chargers team that's been gutted by injuries the entire season, Rich, this is probably the first time, honestly, since the opener that we've talked about things at least on the upswing from a health perspective.
A few minutes left here with Tom Pelissero, my colleague from NFL Network and Yeoman's Work, sitting in my chair over the past week plus while I've been over here in London, moonlighting as a play-by-play man. So I'm looking at 1-5 Tennessee with an interim head coach, interestingly enough, just in time for Vrabel to pull back into town as the AFC East Division leader. Browns 1-5, Dolphins 1-5, Saints 1-5, a handful of 2-4 teams. I only mention this along with the 1-5 Ravens. Anybody who's playing this week, playing their way into being sellers as opposed to anything else in the trade deadline that looms. I know you and the guys talked about this a little bit early on this week, but what about now that we're on the cusp of losses that could actually affect something? Tom.
Well, let's start with the Titans. They have been open for business. They traded Jarvis Brownlee a couple weeks ago, but that was a pretty specific type of situation. They're willing to listen on just about everyone on the roster. Yes, we talked about it with the guys. Like, I don't think that they deal Jeffrey Simmons, but in a position like the Titans are, when you're in the midst of a large-scale rebuild, the early stages of a large-scale rebuild, you kind of are willing to listen to anything. Calvin Ridley would be another logical target. He's out this week because of his hamstring injury, which makes the situation that much harder to try to get Cam Ward going. But the Titans will be there. We've got 18 days till the trade deadline. Doesn't mean that they're going to, go full fire sale and make 8 different trades. But in terms of listening to calls, they're absolutely already in that mode. I do not get the sense the Saints are open to listening at this point. Mickey Loomis has never been a big sell at the trade deadline guy. He feels like, I've got the players. There's a lot of long-time types of guys on that team. We heard Alvin Kamara say it yesterday, and Ian reported this last weekend, that they'd come to him like, hey, we got interest in you. Would you want to be traded? Kamara said no. He said yesterday if he finds out that they traded him anyway, he'll just go drink a pina colada on a beach somewhere rather than playing for a different team. So I certainly anticipate
that might change if the Kansas City Chiefs hand him a uniform, Tom. That might change if the Chiefs hand him a uniform. You know what I mean?
Kamara's
come on now.
He's a unique guy, though. He loves the city, and you just have to get there. I mean, I haven't fully crossed him off the list, but it sounds like that's not something they're looking to do. The more logical targets would be, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. But again, the sense I've gotten is that they are not in any way in sell mode at this time. You heard Mike McDaniel earlier today saying that, any suggestion that Dolphins players are on the trade block is false. That makes sense for the moment because, listen, they got to win some games. They got a big one this week against Cleveland to quiet down all the noise that was largely created by their quarterback this week. They got a bunch of veteran pass rushers between Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon, Jalen Phillips. They've obviously got Jalen Waddle. I don't get the sense at this point they're eagerly looking to trade any of those guys, but if 1-5 becomes 1-6, 7, 8, certainly there's going to be a lot of calls that are made to Miami. With Cleveland, they clearly are already willing to make trades, not just trading Joe Flacco to Cincinnati, but they traded Greg Newsome in a deal for Tyson Campbell that was an unusual trade, but makes sense when their vision is on 2026 right now. Greg Newsome, who was in a contract here, probably wasn't going to be a part of that, so you get a cost-controlled Tyson Campbell in return. There potentially could be other players the teams target. We know we've heard David Njoku on 20 different occasions over the past few years. It's one of Andrew Barry's favorite players. I don't know that he'd be traded, plus he's out this week because of an injury, but players like that, I would anticipate that there are calls And then, you got other teams like the Raiders. At some point, do they go into sell mode? They won last week. They're not completely out of it in a wide open AFC West where nobody's better than 4-2. But if you get a couple of weeks further down the road here, do they end up trading a Jacoby Myers, who it sounds like his status is up in the air for this week because he's got a knee injury that he's dealing with here. They're not going to trade the big ticket items. Max Crosby just did a new deal. He's not going anywhere. I don't think that there's a market for Geno Smith, even if they wanted to trade him. And I've not gotten any indication that their plans for Geno or anything out of play through it and keep him as QB1. The Jets is the other team, 0-6 at this point. Again, you'd like to think you're building some type of momentum here and just get something going in the right direction. But, the only significant trade that they've made thus far was acquiring Jarvis Brownlee, who's actually played pretty well for them far this season. But they've got a bunch of tradable assets on that roster. Breece Hall is the one that a lot of the focus will be on leading up to the deadline. Would they be willing to listen on Quinn and Williams? Again, there's not a lot of players, Rich, and this is not me reporting like, hey, they'll trade Quinn and Williams. I just know this.
Sure.
There's maybe a few dozen players in the entire NFL that are off the market. Everybody else, there's a price at which any team is going to go, that's pretty good value for that guy. But I think one of the things to point out here, and I've had this discussion with a bunch of GMs this week, is how quiet it's been this week, just 18 days now until the deadline. Usually you'd start to see, and we saw a few trades last week, but that's driven in large part from the fact that there's not that many teams that are completely out of it. Even the likes of the Raiders are sitting there going, we got a chance to get back into this thing. Let's see what we can do. A lot of these trades, if they happen, might come right after Halloween, right after, and as we lead up to that deadline that's on the Tuesday, I think it's November 4th, you might be really up against that before you see some of these deals. But again, whoever loses in the Miami-Cleveland game this weekend, if Tennessee, if the Jets, if the Saints, those teams sink over these next week or two here, things could always ramp up quickly, but it is pretty quiet right now.
You're the man, Tom. Before I let you go, the usual question I ask you, it's been a while. I've been out of the chair. The team or situation that everyone around the league is blowing your phone up about for tea to be spilled. Which team is of interest league-wide right now?
Well, Tom? Now that we are beyond the Mike Tomlin, Browns, Bengals love triangle that we had going there, I would say that was the thing early in the week. I would now say the number one thing is how do the Dolphins respond to a week of really weird and unusual adversity? Because the moment that Tua came out and gave that long rambling quote, wasn't even asked about anything in particular, and then starts mentioning players-only meetings and guys being late to players-only meetings, so we make it mandatory. The leadership has to get better. Number one, people I talked to in Miami that night and on Monday morning all said, we don't really know what he's talking about. There's not the traditional types of players-only meetings where it's like, hey, guys, we all got to get on the same page, rah, let's push through. No, he apparently is referring to, defensive players getting together to watch tape on their own, which, by the way, happens in 32 buildings across the league. Every group, different position groups will get together. It's not always a formal type of thing. It's just guys get together and they watch extra tape, or they have various discussions, or the quarterback gets the receivers together. That's completely normal. But when you call out the locker room that way, and then when Mike McDaniel has to go to the podium and basically say, I don't know what he's referring to, but I'm sure he had a reason. They're doing the right things for me, but whatever he's referring to, hopefully we get it cleaned up. People sit back and go, Mike McDaniel sounds clueless about what's happening in his own locker room. Well, anyone would be clueless about something that's not happening in their locker room. So for the next 4 days, Tua was going directly to players on Sunday night and apologizing and explaining himself. Monday he has to go. Mike McDaniel has to go to the podium and basically say Tua shouldn't have said that. Wednesday, Tua's back at the podium. These guys need to win a game, Rich. You need to focus everything you've got on trying to beat the Browns, not going on a 4-day apology and explanation tour. From what I've heard, the offense has had a good week so far. They do have some positive things going for them. Devon Achan's been really good. Jalen Waddle has played excellent. Obviously, Darren Waller is a comeback player of the year candidate based on what he's done over his first few games. And Tua, granted, again, 3 turnovers last week, but throws a touchdown pass in the final minute that but for a long kick return and a play where they couldn't get Justin Herbert or Ladd McConkey on the ground, they win that game. We're talking about it being different here. There's reasons to believe the offense will come out again if the weather holds up, which is a complete unknown at this point. It sounds like, I mean, they're bracing for 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts, rain, thunder. It could be a weird day in Cleveland, but they've got some momentum offensively. The defense just has to play better. We'll see if they step up to the table. But the last thing you want is the proverbial distraction. And this was a distraction unlike, Rich, frankly, very many I've ever seen in the NFL. So
an actual perfect storm for a team that's proverbially been through their own. Tom, I appreciate the 2 cents. And next time on your appearance on the Rich Eisen Show, a special announcement, a new member of the NFL Insiders team commenting on all trades. Mike Tomlin will be part of the new.
I thought you said next time I'm on, I'd be wearing that sequined jacket.
But I will accept no, we got to leave it here.
As the extra member of the Insiders.
We have to leave it here.
Rich, before Tom goes, we found out something weird and unusual about him. Oh. And his quest to be, the top information man, story breaker.
Okay.
He sleeps with his earbuds in. So when a text comes in or a voicemail, it'll just play right into his subconscious brain.
That's next level. That's next
level.
Not
always. If I'm expecting something, I've gotten burned a few times. Just try to be cautious as much as I can. And by the way, Brockman, real quick before I go, I will bid $1.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Pelissero, ears in, antennas up. Ears in, antennas up. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.